demos in there. Yeah.
Alright, we've done this floor, so go on all that.
And this is a how to tape internals video.
So when you do short internals, the ones that go above the door, and you don't have to tape the whole thing. Basically, you want to pull it out if you don't have enough. You hold the black for our Tapepro. You've got the mechanism that cuts it. You hold it basically the whole way because it won't drag, and then you let it go and you cut. You know, and then it'll come and roll it, and then because they're short ones and the glazer doesn't do them that well, we just pull the short ones out by hand. The same thing, you just pull these up and you cut, and then for the long ones, it's usually got enough so you don't have to pull it out. You can just drag it a little bit. You go to the bottom, put it in, and you put your knee on your arm here so that you don't have to put so much force. It's just your body doing it all, and then you center it with your finger while holding the tape so it doesn't drag so much.
And normally this is a two-man job, but we're trying to keep the apprentice from only just doing screws, so
he's got to learn.
He's got to learn he's a roller. Hardest job of the year.
And then if you've got tight areas, instead of not letting this go, you can just hold the tape and just push, and you can let go of that black thing and it won't move, it won't drag on you.
Yeah, I find it, when I do it, it pulls the tape up, it drags so much.
On the short ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to keep, you don't want to let go of that black thing.
Yeah.
So it seems to, that wheel, when it touches it, it seems almost like sometimes scrunch it or even just pull it up. So if you don't let go and you make sure
It's a bit dirty now, but we find the can glazer is the best. I don't know, leaves the tape a lot nicer, cuts the edges a lot more.
Yeah, the other ones don't seem to
all the
cut
other
the
ones
edge.
that we've tried.
Yeah, we've tried the Tapepro, those blue with the blue legs on them.
Yeah.
We've tried, well, you know, we've tried those Columbia. You gave them to us, I think.
Yeah.
And for some reason, they just leave like a little edge, just like on the right side. These leave a little bit of an edge when they're worn, but you have to replace them. So I'll show you again. So you pull this back. It's got enough to dig this big wheel. Has little ridges here. It's got enough to touch that and dig almost into the board a little bit so that you can pull it up. And now when you go down, you can just continue doing that up. See how it's barely moving? And then you let it go when you're like at a good distance. So you're not like doing it when you're this low, you know? So it's just a lot easier. Then you just kind of hold it a little bit. You don't even have to hold it, but I like centering it while I go up. Makes it a little bit easier. And then the little ones again. Same thing, you can either not hold it or you can just hold the tape and just push up on an angle. And bring it back and cut. It's just consistency. It's all about your body. You don't want to be like trying to muscle.
It's just a really light pressure even on the way down. That's it. Sorry, bro. One of the most important things is getting the consistency right of your mix. Because if you mix too thick, it'll just leave them looking like crap. Doesn't matter how well you glaze or anything. It just you got to sloppy up the mud a little bit. You don't want it running like water, but you don't want it thick like external or even like walls and ceilings mud. Just in between.
You just want to be able to pour it out.
Yeah, you want to be able to pour it out of the bucket. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes if it's too thick,
You're trying to pour it out and it almost like drops in sections and it's a little bit too thick. You want it to be able to just pour consistently into the tape.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be that right to do this.
Yeah.
Someone's nailing some villa next door, eh?
Yeah, they're getting it on.
So if the tape keeps ripping, what are you doing wrong?
What do you mean keep ripping?
Is it too thick? If it just breaks, it's not spinning.
A lot of it could be you're digging the wheel in too hard because it's too thick.
Yeah.
So you get, this is almost ripping. So it shouldn't be too thick. Like this should be free moving. If it's not, it's either the cog's not sitting in the paper all the way and it's almost like jamming. You don't want it jamming.
Yeah.
Because then it just makes it harder and then it can rip. Because also if you're leaving it sitting on the bucket, then that means that paper that's sitting in the thing, it gets so weak because it's so wet for so long.
You got to keep it moving.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter, but it means when you pick it up, you just got to be a bit more careful when you pull that next one out.
Yeah.
Say if you're doing it on your own, you've taken the roof, you let it sit,
Yeah.
and you come back to it. That first one usually is always the toughest. Once you get that first tape on, you'll be good. It'll always be a bit harder, the one that's soaked in. It almost suctions in as well, so it's so hard to start it. You try to pull it out and you're ripping the paper, it's so tough. It's because of the suction. Sometimes you can just open the lid.
What's up?
You can just open the lid, poke the paper, move it around, and it pulls the air that's stopping it, you know, or pulling it out with the lid open makes it a lot easier, and then you shut the lid and continue. So there's other reasons. We don't usually have them too much because there's multiple pieces of paper. That's not really sitting for very long. But if you go to mix, sometimes it sits, and then the first one's always a struggle, but once you get that first tape on, the rest comes through pretty easy. And again, when you get here, if the mud's really runny, it almost wants to come slip through the mud, the tape, so you always want to make sure that tape's down the bottom. Because of the way it's being applied, it's coming up like this on the wall, so the mud's going on top. So if it goes underneath and not on top, you're wetting the other side of the tape, which is not what you want, it won't stick. See how the mud's, and this is towards the end where it's thickened up a little, it comes out quite easily. But you don't want it to be too runny where you can't really handle the mud with the fork. You don't want it to be just dripping constantly and you can essentially fill it up with just your 4-inch. It'll be just a little bit annoying. Board doesn't really dig in like the normal plasterboard because it's like a fibre cement, so you pretty much just have to hold it from the beginning.
That sucks.
Yeah, or just press a lot harder. Just got to be a bit more careful.
Good.
Change paper, you obviously either you can empty the box and put the paper in at the bottom, or you can just push the paper down and then twist your blade so that it goes down flat. Because if you put it down here and it's not flat, you've messed it all around, it actually folds sometimes. It'll come out folded out of the tape machine, so you've got to take the lid off, unfold it, and redo it again. So if you're not used to doing this, you can easily, instead of pushing it through, just empty the remainder of the mud that you already had in here when you ran out of tape.
So just make sure it's sitting flat.
Yeah,
Sure.
flat enough. And it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And then whenever you change it, shake it forward so there's mud, and then wait until the mud shows back up, and then you can cut it off. And that's how you change when you've already started using it. Around the tape.
Yeah, I think so.
You can just hear that.
Yeah.
Slide, eh?
It cuts nice there, and it's like no pressure either. Like it's the can in glazer just cuts it.